What's up, everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and today we're going to talk about the best exercises for the defensive hook. Okay, so let's talk about the defensive hook a little bit here, and then we're going to talk about my favorite exercises that we're going to be doing and some of the equipment that we're going to be using. Okay, so defensive hook. Remember, we've been talking about different hooks on this channel so far. We've been talking about offensive and defensive hooks, and I want to be clear that a defensive hook is any hook position, meaning your wrist is bent, any hook position where your fingers are higher than your opponent, then you are in a defensive position in your hook, regardless of where on the spectrum this is. Okay, so for a defensive hook position, keep in mind a defensive hook is not a good position to be in. It's much better to be in an offensive hook position. So as I said, an offensive hook position is where your fingers are lower than your opponent, ideally directly to the side. Okay, so your wrist flexion and ulnar flexion and your hand is directly to the side. If you're in a defensive hook position, your hand is somewhat turned up. Worst case scenario is your hand is turned all the way up. Okay, so when your hand is completely supinated, okay, you can only turn so far. Okay, so as somebody's pulling your hand and you're in a defensive hook position, all of the stress, as the stress goes out and towards the pin pad, eventually you run out of room and your pronation is attacked and your arm rolls over. Okay, so in a defensive hook, some of the muscles that we need, some of the primary muscles that we need are obviously the biceps. We did biceps in a different video, so obviously this is going to be working the biceps, but this is going to be working direct components of the defensive hook, and it's going to be exercises that pretty much mimic the position and are going to work it best. And we're going to work it in an isometric fashion. So we're going to be loading heavier weights and we're going to be doing static defensive hook movements. For the most part, okay, we're going to be doing one movement with a little bit of, or one exercise with a little bit of movement. The other two are going to be isometric. So let's take a look at the equipment we're going to use and then I'll show you the exercises. Okay guys, so let's take a look at some of the exercise equipment we're going to be using for the defensive hook exercises today. Okay, so I have my stability box. Okay, remember, if your elbow's not stable when you're training for arm wrestling, you're training the wrong way. Okay, so I have free weights down here on the ground. We're going to go a little bit heavier today. I'm not going to max out or anything, but we'll go pretty heavy. Let's use 70 pounds. We're going to use, or on a couple of the exercises. I got two 25-pound plates here. I got two 10s, so we'll use 70 pounds. I have my pin loader. Okay, so we're gonna put our weights on there. We have our grip. This is gonna go on my rolling pin. Okay, so we're gonna take up a defensive hook position with this, and we're gonna use the grip attachment, and then we're also gonna use one of my favorite things. We're gonna use this strap, and I'll show you how to use all of this for the defensive hook. Okay guys, so the first exercise we're going to be doing is a defensive hook isometric hold, okay, but we're going to be doing it with our pronation. We're going to be doing it with our pronation strap, okay, so, or our pronation loop, okay, so this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be using my stability box, okay, we're going to be going into a defensive hook position, but we're going to have the weight hanging off the pin loader, okay, which is fine, but we're going to be actually taking a defensive hook position, okay, with the, so the first position, we're actually going to be using it over the thumb, okay, so it's going to want to rotate you this way. That's the biggest danger in a defensive hook, is you need to maintain some pronation, okay, and I'm going to mention that several times in this video, okay. Your defensive hook is much safer when it's in this position than in this position, okay. Once you're completely turned up, then you have no more pronation, okay. So you're just in you're in a very dangerous position there. So you want to try to maintain some pronation, even if you're in a defensive hook position. Okay, so we're going to reinforce that with this first exercise. Okay, so Let's put the weights on there, and then I'll demonstrate this for you guys. Okay, you guys, so we got the first exercise for the defensive hook. Okay, so we're gonna use the pronation towel, okay, and I'm gonna take a defensive hook position. I'll show you this from a couple of different angles, okay, and I'm gonna show you from the front first, okay. Here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put the weight on top of the box, and then I'm gonna come down into a defensive hook position, and we're gonna hold as long as we can. That's the exercise. Okay, here we go. Okay, we want to take our weight. I take it from the floor and I put it on top of the box to start, okay? Use both hands. Okay, so remember this, you can go a little bit heavier on this one, you know, so you can experiment with what weight is going to work best for you. We're going to just use 70 pounds today, okay? So remember on this one, this is going over your thumb, okay? So we're going to take it over the thumb grip. Okay, so watch me here, over the thumb. Okay, and here we go, okay. I'm gonna use both hands to get it into position. Okay, I'm gonna take a defensive hook position, and then I'm just gonna hold this. And it's gonna try to rotate my arm over, and I'm going to try to maintain some pronation until it rolls me all the way. And I have to go all the way down. Let me show you that from another angle. Okay, guys, same exercise, just from another angle. Here we go. Okay, so remember we're going over the thumb. Okay, so the weight is trying to rotate your hand open, okay? So you're trying to maintain a defensive hook while the weight is trying to open your pronation, okay? And you're gonna hold as long as you can until the weight forces your hand open and you have to put the weight down. Try to pick a weight that's heavy enough to do about 10 to 30 seconds. Let me show you from the other angle. Okay, guys, same exercise, just from the inside. Okay. Let's move on to the next one. Okay, guys, so exercise number 2 for the defensive hook. Okay, we're going to be using our rotating handle with the fit grip. Okay, so keep in mind I would strongly suggest getting one of these accessories for your toolkit, for your arm wrestling tools, okay, as a rotating handle. Okay, we're going to be using this with the loading pin attachment, okay, that's all we're going to use. And remember, it rotates both ways, okay, and that's very useful, but I don't like it by itself, okay, that's why I use the fit grip, okay. I'm using the grip over the top. This is the same thing you can use on the dumbbells or on, I use them on pull-up bars. I haven't demonstrated those yet, but I use them on all kinds of different handles so it mimics an arm wrestling grip, and it helps my arm wrestling grip, okay? So I don't like the thin grip. That's why I don't like dumbbell grips the way they are. I like to use the fit grips, okay? And I do that for as many exercises as I possibly can. You wanna have a wide grip so it mimics arm wrestling, okay? If your hand is this tight, okay, that's not mimicking arm wrestling, okay? Your hand would be more open, and that's what you should be training no matter what position you're in, and that includes the defensive hook, okay? So let's look at this exercise. Once again, this is an isometric hold, but it's important how you use this handle, okay? Now look at this thing. I'm gonna put the fit grip on. Okay, now the handle, let me show you on the box so it makes more sense, okay? Okay, so for our defensive hook, this is important. Okay, so our defensive hook, we're maintaining this position, okay? Our defensive positions with our knuckles up in the air, okay? And we're trying to maintain some pronation, okay? So we want to be using a handle that's going to be pressing the weight this way, okay? If I use the handle this way, you see the weight's actually pulling inside, and that's helping me to pronate, and that's not realistic in arm wrestling. The weight would be similar to the strap we just used where it was going over my thumb. We want to pick a weight that's going to be pulling you slightly this direction, so our defensive hook is being stressed to pull the hand open. Okay, so let's attach this to the loading pin and I'll show you from a couple of different angles. I just have 25 pounds on here. Same thing, you want to pick something that's heavy enough so that you could hold a good defensive hook position for between 10 and 30 seconds. Okay, if you can hold longer than that, you should definitely add more weight. Okay, and you can do a variation of those. So let's attach. And I'll demonstrate what it's going to look like with some more weight on there. Okay. So once again, and in this one, watch my thumb position, okay? I'm gonna take my thumb out. I'm not wrapping it around, okay? I actually get a better defensive hook if I put my thumb on the same side as my fingers, okay? So that's an important aspect of this exercise, okay? The rest of it, I'm just gonna show you from a couple different angles and you'll see what it looks like, okay? So as you can see, we're using my favorite stability box. Your arm is in arm wrestling position. Now this one, you want to get a complete defensive hook, okay? So you're really bringing your arm in there, okay? And you're just holding in a defensive position. The weight is pulling my hand open this way, so I'm trying to pull this way to maintain it, okay? And I'm holding as long as I can. Remember, in a defensive hook in arm wrestling, your arm's not gonna be up here. You're usually extended a little bit. So this is the position I like to work it in isometrically. I hold it at about 90 degrees, okay? So let's look at that from a couple of different angles. I'm just gonna turn the box right now, okay? Okay, so from the side, okay, we're getting a full defensive hook there. Okay, and then I'm gonna just maintain it at about 90 degrees right there. And you can see the weight is gonna force me this way. We don't wanna use the handle the other way, okay? And I'm gonna hold that as long as I can. And if I can go more than 30 seconds, I'm just gonna add weight. Let me show you from the other angle and then we'll show you the last exercise. Okay, guys, same exercise, one more angle here. So the weight's pulling my hand open, okay, and I'm getting a complete defensive hook in there, okay, and then I'm just gonna try to hold it, okay, and keep in mind, I'm putting a little bit of force into my pronation to keep my hand from rolling this way, okay, so I'm stressed similar to the last exercise we were doing, okay. And same idea, you want to hold for as long as you comfortably can until you have to put it down. Let's do one more exercise. Okay guys, exercise number 3 for the defensive hook. Okay, this is one of my very favorites. Okay, now remember, when you're in a defensive hook, what do we want to do? We want to get an offensive position. Okay, now there's a lot of counters to to being stuck in a defensive hook. And I'm gonna do a video really soon on what to do when stuck in a defensive hook, okay? And that'll be very instructive on how to turn a defensive hook into an offensive hook much more easily, but we're working on strengths here, okay? And I wanna make sure I add this one in. You're gonna like this, okay? So same wrist position. We're gonna be using the rotating wrist handle with the weight rotating to the outside. Okay, so if you're using your left arm, the weight's going to be rotating over your thumb, okay? And then on your right, same thing. You want the weight rotating over your thumb. You don't want this on the inside, okay? Because then it just rolls your hand into an easier position and it makes it easier to pronate. We want to stress the pronation, so the handle needs to be on the outside, especially for this exercise, and you're going to see why. Okay, this is my favorite defensive hook exercise. Okay, so if you've watched this far and you didn't turn the video off, you made it to the real good footage. Okay, so we're going to turn our defensive hook into an offensive hook. Now, how do we do that? Did you just see that? Okay, and this is before I show you the exercise. Just watch, okay? You can see where I'm going with this. Okay, is we're stuck in a defensive hook position. What motion is that? Okay, that's pronation, ulnar flexion, okay? Ulnar flexion. Okay, so once again, we're revisiting ulnar flexion for reversing a defensive hook. Now, once again, this isn't a strong position, but you need to have ulnar flexion to turn a defensive hook into an offensive hook, especially when you're using some force, and it will really come in handy in arm wrestling. Okay, so once again, ulnar flexion for a defensive hook. Now, this is what we're going to be using a lot less weight. Okay, so this is going to be a really light exercise. You might be surprised. Okay, so this one, I have a 5, a 7.5, and then a 1 1/4 on this one, and that's plenty of weight for this exercise. Okay, so this one, we're going to be attaching the loading pin and the rotating handle, and I'll show you how this looks. Okay, I'll give you an up close, and then I'll show you from a few different angles. Okay, so we're attaching this. Okay, let's take a look at how this is going to work. Okay, so for this exercise, okay, I still take my thumb out of the movement. I put it on top of the gripper. You don't need to do that. You can put it further down, okay? For this instructional one, let's just put it further down. It's gonna make the exercise harder if you take your thumb out. If you put your thumb up here, it makes it different, or it makes it unrealistic for arm wrestling, okay? Keep the pressure low, and I take my thumb out of the movement, okay? So, okay, we're in a defensive hook. The weight is pulling my hand over. What I'm going to do is try to turn, just use the weight into an offensive hook, okay? And that's what we're going to be doing here. Okay, so we're here, we're in a defensive hook position, and we're going to turn into an offensive hook. And it's not a lot of weight, as you can see. Okay, so let's look at a couple different angles. Okay, so defensive hook, and then we're just and they're really hard, okay? So you don't need a lot of weight on there. And if you're losing your grip on here, you can put the thumb on the other side too, okay? And work. It doesn't necessarily make it easier, so you might want to experiment with those, okay? And then from the other side, okay, we're going to be going here. Okay, here, I'm totally hooked in. Okay, so I'm trying to get a complete wrist flexion there, so it's a real defensive hook. Okay, and then rotate my fingers to the side. Okay, try to hold at the top. One more time. Okay, and on that one, try to pick a weight that's heavy enough to hit exhaustion by about 8 to 12 repetitions. I'll see you guys in the next one.